I'm muted. All right, let me just close my door real quick. All right, hey everyone. We're gonna jump right in. We got a few things to go over, and we probably got to call the meeting off about 10 minutes early, if that's okay. I have to get to staging, because apparently we have staging for an event with the police department for our memorial event this morning. So I want to jump in. So thanks everyone for joining us. We got first approval of the minutes from April 15th. Is there any, everyone, I'm sure, got the minutes, and if so, is there any discussion on them? There's no discussion. I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes. Is there a second?
A second.
Seconded by Mr. Bell. All in favor of the motion, please say aye or give me a thumbs up. All opposed, same sign. The ayes have it. All right, let's jump into our monthly update by Wayne Bell and about COVID or anything else that might be happening at the, with the different opportunities.
Thank you, Mayor. Good morning, everybody. Really just a very brief update for any applicants for COVID EIDL loan increases. If those were not obligated by May 5th, unfortunately, those funds have been exhausted. There's been a communication that's been sent out, and we're actively in the process of advising or answering questions, of local EIDL recipients who may have questions about their information. There is one addition there. If anyone who has received an EIDL loan hasn't had the opportunity to download their documents, you can contact our local office for assistance with that. We can help. The portal has been closed, to those loan recipients now, and they're unable to download documents. So if anyone needs help, just reach out to our local office, and I'll be sure to put our contact information in the chat. Thank you, Mayor.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Bell. All right, we're going to jump in. We got a few folks from our staff who are on to discuss the liquor regulations with events. For those who might recall, we've had some questions brought up about liquor regulations, events, and how we could take better advantage of big things happening downtown, so that folks can get us up to speed on the best ways to approach policy, so that you all who work in the service industry can take advantage of these moments. So with that, we'll open it up to Isaac, who's the event coordinator for the Park and Recreation Department, to get a report, and then we have the city deputy, the chief deputy city attorney next, and then a city law department employee who's also going to talk about this a little more. So let's start off with Isaac.
I am Isaac Gunnar Haskins. I'm not sure exactly what we'll be discussing this morning. I know a lot of it kind of is dependent upon the state as far as the how complex everything is. Was there a certain liquor application we were wanting to discuss in particular? Or?
Hey, Isaac, this is Casey, and I think it would be good if we could just start with the NCAA tournament and kind of how that progressed and how some of those changes happened that you discussed with us at the meeting we had with the mayor, and kind of go from there to see if people have more questions.
Gotcha. So originally, when it comes to NCAA tournaments, if you're having an event where you're airing the broadcast, prior to 2022, actually earlier this spring, I believe is when they changed it, you weren't allowed to serve alcohol within the viewing range of the actual game itself. Now, that doesn't include bars or anything like that. It just includes people who are doing a special event who had to get permission from NCAA to air the actual game itself. A couple months before the actual tournament, they changed that policy, and we just didn't revisit it. Our department wanted it to be more of a family event and just chose not to have alcohol at it.
Okay, Sharon, why don't you add to this then? You're muted. Sorry.
Okay. I'm normally not that quiet, even when I'm muted. I think that when we talk about community events, we have to start with where the state statute starts. And the premise is generally that you cannot consume alcohol on a public street or public sidewalk without some sort of permitting process. I know historically, many of the concerns were regarding street closures, the expenses to do that, the barricade requirements, and those are requirements that are required by state law, either to have a common consumption area or a temporary entertainment district. If businesses are looking to try to expand into certain areas or to close streets and participate in events, Isaac is a good resource, as is the police department, to just talk about the general requirements of what you need to have. The city staff would certainly like to make this an easier process. We are limited, however, because we have pretty restrictive alcohol laws at the state level. But the city's website licensing has a whole array of information about the permit process, licensing in general for drinking establishments, restaurants. So, we're here to help assist to try to get those events planned and made legal and made safe for everyone. I'm happy to answer any specific questions you might have. I know Isaac knows a lot about the community event process, but the guidelines that we have pretty much parallel, especially for events, the state statutes.
All right. Well, Nate, what do you have to add? And then we'll open up for discussions. We'll let the staff get their information out, and then we can open up for discussion on what we could be doing better.
Yeah, and I think that's the big complication that Sharon was talking about, that it's a layered system with a lot of duplications. So you kind of got to get a temporary permit at the state level and the local level. And that's how we have the opportunity to permit it here. But I will also say Isaac has been great, and I'm relatively new at the city, but has been great working with the state ABC to try to smooth things out, or any questions that we have, such as like getting a dual temporary permit system and making sure everybody's on the same page. So he does a great job facilitating that information and smoothing out issues that we have.
All right. Well, Andrew, do you want to jump in on this a little bit, where I think that the goal of this meeting isn't really to just highlight why things didn't work, but to find problems that we can fix, because we discovered that with the big event happening downtown with the NCAA tournament, our small business community who work around that area, particularly those who work in the service sector, really couldn't, they didn't even feel like that it was worth pursuing some of the permits so that they could make money off this. And so the goal is, I think, to figure out what's going well in other cities maybe, or what we could be doing different, and to make necessary changes instead of just, I guess, living with the system that frankly was reported in a couple of meetings ago that failed our small businesses. It wasn't one that they could navigate, so they just chose to please stay out of it. So Andrew, I know, is someone who's quite knowledgeable in the service sector. And can we just kind of kick off where, are there any holes or stuff we should be looking at? So Andrew.
I'll tell you, first of all, I think Stacy is much more qualified to speak about this than I am. So I want to leave space for Stacy Ward-Lattin to speak on it. And you're referencing Adam and Jesse Hartke and their NASCAR Park experience, and why, things they would have had to gone through to make that a viable, situation for them. And it sounds like it was an NC2A rule that made it really not so exciting for them to want to do it, with having to push all the people out to the street and then them having to play bad cop, to all the people who wanted to go watch the game on that massive Jumbotron that was put in there that obviously wasn't going to be possible. So I don't know if I can speak to that so much. I could just say in general, anytime that we want to do anything related to alcohol within outside of our business, we have to jump through several hoops. All of it's dictated by the state, so it's not necessarily a city issue. However, there are situations where the city does get involved if it's a group, and Stacy probably knows more about this, but because I've never actually done this, but the whole licensing of a what is it, like a space for people to assemble outside of your space. If it's over like so many people, estimated, you have to have a plan, has to go to city council and be approved. And, you know, with all these like rules of like borders, and I think those rules have actually gotten easier the last few years to do. I mean, I see more and more public events with alcohol, so I know that it's possible. But I'm not really sure if I could speak to what are the specific things that people struggle with with the city of Wichita, because when it comes to doing certain events with alcohol with the state, it's pretty simple for us when we did this. And I have to disclose, like, we let our licensing go back in February because we weren't making enough money to keep it. So we no longer serve alcohol in our business. But you would basically have to, within 48 hours, provide the state a map of the event if you're doing an offsite event. And if it was a special event, you know, you basically give details, and it wasn't that big of a deal. And that didn't really affect the city because it was all well within our rights with the city. But we're talking about having, when we host events, that's a different scenario. And I don't know much about that. Stacy throws best parties, so let's let her.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So we do a big anniversary party. Can you guys hear me? I'm on a different computer. Okay. We do a big anniversary party in June every year, and I start planning that in January, basically. And if I didn't have Isaac to help me, I don't think I would get very far most of the time. It's pretty turnkey, but at this point, but it's a lot of filling out paperwork. It's got to go to city council, ABC, that's the state. They can't do anything till the city does everything. So it's a very long process. And if I just wanted to do we utilize the parking lot behind us, M&M Insurance lets us do that. Because it's behind us, we get to extend our liquor license. But like Andrew said, that's a big state issue. If I wanted to do a party somewhere else, I would have to purchase my beer I'd have to sell my beer to somebody else and purchase it back in order to have it. That's a state thing. So that's a big, a mess in itself. But because it's behind us, we're able to extend that. But I think just the average like business person, if something came up where like we should have a party, or there's a tournament coming, or there's something we should do. I mean, I literally start planning in January for June. And I don't have to plan probably that early. But I would say by March, if I don't have my stuff together, like it's probably not going to happen. And so that event's pretty turnkey. I think anything that's more last minute or more an opportunity arises, like the NCAA tournament, where we might not find out the information till it's too late to get things going. And my biggest concern is not just me putting on an event myself, but when there's already events taking place, that alcohol is not allowed. Like Open Streets is a great example. Douglas is closed, but we cannot have any alcohol outside. And I know that's could be an issue, but there shouldn't be any reason why we can't have like an area for that or something where people can spread out and still be safe. And I just don't that's one of the things I wanted to mention today, that's always been a concern, why it's literally closed for that time. And it's like still an issue.
I can speak a little bit more as to why Stacy actually has to go through the entire community event application. So she's extending her premise into that parking lot, but in order to extend her premise into the private parking lot, she has to go through an alleyway. And the alleyway is what kicks in the need for a temporary entertainment district. And the only way to attain that is through a community event application. If that parking lot was actually abutted directly to her back door or her front door for that matter, all she would need to do is apply for an ABC 816 form, which is one of the easiest alcohol permits out there.
Let me pause right there. The fact that you could recite that almost verbatim within just a few seconds is the kind of help that our community needs, because restaurateurs and bar owners are inundated with so many problems all the time that to take the time to go research what very well professional is just like, it's just not going to happen. And I know I'm not picking Stacy, but like we've known about the event for like 2 years. So if somebody from the city said, well, we've known about NC2A for 2 years, but everybody seemed to think, and including me, like it just popped up out of nowhere. And that's because that's how we think. It's like, I got to run my business for 2 years. I'm not going to plan an event that I don't know a thing about. I have no idea who's going to be there. I don't know anything. So, and it's also like, I think in the last 2 years, the contract with the, with Wave to run this facility, what came after that. So like we couldn't have even started planning an event So the point is like the city's help could be in getting this information out very clear and simply to us. So like, here's the process. If you want to have an event, these are the things that you have to do. And I know that the city doesn't necessarily want to be, perceived as giving advice, but like, we really need your advice because we have to go to you to get the process done. So, and there's a term that the city and the county used to use called expediting, and they got rid of that because they didn't want the public to see them helping people get forward. They wanted the people to get forward by doing it on their own accord. Well, guess what happens after you stop expediting? Projects take longer. There's more problems. There's more permits and fines and fees. It's like, so this would be a form of expedition that would actually help the community. And we continue to run our business and do these special events, not one or the other. So I like the fact that you know this, and I think that more people can take advantage of that. So I'm not here to pick on you. I think that
No, you're good.
more people like city lead, not us. So sorry,
Yeah,
that's my.
No, you're good. The community event application would also come into effect if you expected more than 250 people at any given time, or if you had multiple vendors. Now, Stacy, they have food trucks, but food trucks are handled differently, so she doesn't fall under any other restrictions. I did have one thought, which was prior to open air ICT permitting. If you wanted to extend your footprint onto a sidewalk, you had to go through the entire community event process. Since open air ICT came through, that's no longer needed. And I'll let Sharon or Nate talk to this, but I don't know if that's an option for people to then extend into the street, just push it a little further. I'm not sure if the state would allow that really. I would need Sharon or Nate to kind of speak to that.
Yeah, I think if you start going into the street, that the state is going to require that street to be closed and that you have a community event. The open air ICT were essentially allowing you to extend your license into that sidewalk area or into that parking space. Although I don't know we've had anybody go out into the parking space, but that ordinance would allow that. I think if you went much farther than that, I think ABC may come in and say you really need to get the common consumption or a TED to get that street completely closed.
Yeah, because we're on Douglas though, we can't do any of that. We can't do it. We can't block the sidewalk. We can't do any of that. So that's why I mentioned open streets, because that's the one time a year that Douglas is already closed. Because obviously I'm not trying to close down Douglas just for a random event, but yeah, so there's a lot of things like, because we're not on a side street, we can't utilize open air at all.
So I'd be interested to get some feedback on if there's, well, first of all, like Andrew's feedback is good about the expediting process. We should be in the business of helping people through the complexities. And so I don't know who thought it would be a good idea to make it look like we're not helping people as much as they need to, so they can get through this process. But we should probably be okay with investing more time into folks who might need more time to really understand these processes. Also, though, I'm interested to know if a lot of this is at the state level, and if some of this is more unintended, where something might pass one way, but it really doesn't keep people safer if we use it a certain way. It really doesn't have. It's more of a deterrence than it is, I think, proper policy. If we can identify that stuff at the state level, can we put it on our legislative agenda and ask that, use the power of Wichita, I guess, to ask our lawmakers to either give us a carve out or the ability to regulate that locally, or a statewide way to get to navigate it that's a little more user friendly. So that's something I think we should be thinking about as we talk about this. We were very successful with our legislative agenda this year when it came to getting things done, because we combined our legislative agenda with the county and with the Chamber of Commerce. So if there's stuff that we could be changing at the state level that would help us better at the local level, I'd love to hear that, so that we could send that to our legislative delegation and see if they could help us. So further discussion with Isaac or any of the other folks. And again, the whole goal here is to keep safety in mind while also keeping usability in mind. What can we do to modernize our laws so we can create vibrant outdoor environments that people want to go and spend money and hang out and have a good time. So it's not just small business, it's also quality of life. So what we should be thinking about that. And then also maybe the first, if we have some ideas, running it through Isaac and sharing it to see if it's feasible, if there's any holes in it. And if there's not, we can send these ideas up to the legislature.
I would say at a minimum, if you could just do so you want to do this, so you want to do that, here are the 3 steps you have to go through. And then including the things like, remember, you got to call the state or whatever it is, for especially for those that don't have liquor licenses. I think there are some rules to allow you to have events where you would maybe hire a company to come on, like an event planning company. So there's like all kinds of scenarios. And when people when they go out searching for ideas, they end up finding nothing, because it's just hard. You have different agencies and organizations that have to like interact together. But if like the city's like, well, this ultimately ends up and lands in our lap, our front porch, our street, then we should be the one driving, because the state doesn't care. Like the city needs to work for itself. So we need to go line it up and make it easy for us to have events. And I think you'll find that you'll get a lot more, business operators that would be willing to do things if they just made it kind of roll out the red carpet. And it just could be something as simple as put it on the website and then you're done. And then hopefully keep up with the legislation that changes sometimes more frequent than we know,
I think a lot of that information is already on our website. If you go to the Arts and Cultural Services page, how to plan a community event. So a lot of those things are there. We have a community events guide that's available. Isaac's phone number's there, how to plan an outdoor concert, how do you plan a parade, how to plan a run, planning a street closure. Now maybe we need to do a better job of PRing that the resources are there. But I think the guidelines are there. And I couldn't agree more that there are 19,000 variations of an event. Are you extending premises? Are you closing streets? What kind of alcohol are you serving? And I think we can give general parameters online, or if there's better ways to get that information to folks, I think we're always open to that with our communication team. So, I think it's there. Maybe we need to do a better job of telling people where it is and how to get there.
Can I ask you where it is? Because I'm on there now and it doesn't jump off the page at me. And I'd like to.
I just dropped that link in the chat there. It's wichita.gov/arts. And then from there, you'll scroll down just a bit and select how to plan a community event.
Well, and I got there by just Googling community event plans Wichita, and it took me to it. I'm a Googler. So, could there be better information? We're always looking for ways to help folks because this is a complex process. And if there are updates or changes or more information that needs to be provided, we can certainly work with the communications team to get some of that information on there.
So, and that brings me to my next idea or thought. It's kind of piggybacking off this discussion. Could we do maybe 30-second videos with Isaac saying, so this is what you want to do, and then have like a list where so you want to throw a party at a park, this is what you do if you're going to make money off of it, or so you're a bar owner and you want to have an outdoor event, this is what you do. Like, could we do maybe just quick 30-second videos that show where, and I'll talk with Jonas, I'll talk to the comms team, but for folks who work in this world, would that be beneficial with like 30-second to a minute YouTube video, that kind of crash course in the process? What do we think?
Yeah, I would be fine with that. We could also create, I don't know if you've seen the actual community events guide that's on that webpage. It's 29 pages long. We could easily make a much smaller one that just deals with alcohol as well.
Yeah, we need you to turn that into a TikTok, Isaac. All right, that 30 pages, we need you to make that a TikTok, and it needs to be like 15 seconds. So we'll get Nolan down there to work with you.
Alrighty.
Isaac didn't know he was going to be forced to make videos.
You're gonna have to dance. We need some dancing, maybe something.
You don't want to see that.
Funny in the background. I mean,
I will say when I just I just email Isaac and he's helped me so much. You really have helped me so. And I know I can find a lot of that online and I get the links and everything, but just emailing. And so I don't know if that's like what you want people to do. Do you want me to just email you? Is that, or do you want to people to just do like, I don't know if that's the right process, but just sometimes I probably ask you questions that, it's not in your realm, but you always answer me and help me out. So I don't know if that's helpful. I mean, as a small business owner, it's helpful to have a person. I know that's not, things change, roles change, move around. That's probably not like long-term, but just having that person. If anybody asks me about events, I always just say, here's Isaac's email. So I don't know if that's a short-term
pretty much.
solution.
Most everyone said if somebody calls somebody else in the city, they usually send them to me if they're planning any sort of special event, I'm perfectly fine with that.
And maybe even a video about that. Sometimes I get tagged in stuff on social media and people just angry at that point. And it's in their mind that reaching out to me won't be helpful, right? And I usually, like yesterday, this happened. I respond with, hey, thanks for the tag, shoot me an email and I'll fire it off to the department that needs attention, to take care of this. And so it's not anyone's fault, but there's this idea, I think, that, oh, I can't figure this out and therefore no one will help me, right? Like, so is there, and I'm not saying that's any of our staff's fault. I think we have some of the best people working for us when it comes to customer service. But is there a way that we can, I guess, encourage that more? I just, and if it's not Isaac on TikTok, we'll put Sharon on that. But anyways, we just gotta, what can we do to be more user friendly, right? And so let's maybe that would be the next part of this discussion about, and maybe with Isaac, I can have an offline discussion with you about what's the most common stuff you hear, because what Stacy's saying is pretty much, hey, I reach out to Isaac all the time, he's great. Isaac's saying other people do that, and I'm great with that. So I bet we could figure out, hey, what's the most common stuff, and then okay, can we upload Isaac's consciousness to the internet so if he ever goes away, we still have him? No, can we make that out there more prevalent, so it's easier to find and people can utilize it before having to reach out? Because there are folks out there who I think rather look at YouTube videos than talk to a person, because they're afraid their question might come off as silly and they don't want to be embarrassed type stuff. So can we get that information out there? But I don't know. Isaac, can we talk after about what's your top stuff you usually hear? Can we pretty much make a more useful frequent questions page, frequently asked questions page? Could we, what would be the best way to move forward with this?
Yeah, no, I'd be fine with that. I know the biggest complaint I get is when anybody wants to apply for a temporary permit. Those are typically the hardest. And you can only apply for a temporary permit 3 times a year and can't do it more than 3 consecutive days in a row. Those are state regulations, but I mean, the state actually shrunk their temporary permit application. Now it's just 1 page. I believe ours is still 4.
Cool.
Yeah.
We should talk about that. And even the fact that they put it from 4 pages to 1 page, that might actually encourage more people to be interested in applying for it. And so that information, if you're not picking on Stacy, but if you're Stacy who checked into this a couple of years ago and like, hey, I don't have time to hire a lawyer and go through this paperwork, and now it's easier, getting that message out might actually entice folks in that situation to take another stab at it. So,
and the state also went all digital, so you can do everything with your online ABC account, whereas the city's still kind of in the Stone Age when it comes to licensing paperwork. You can't even email the liquor application to the city downstairs at Licensing Express. They have to have that original application with your original signature on it.
Why? Sharon, is that just our process, or is there a legal reason for that? Do we need a wet signature?
I would imagine that's the process, and I would imagine that your ordinances are probably still saying original signature. But I certainly think that there are probably internal, is that a legal requirement? No. Does there need to be a signature by someone? Yes. And I would imagine that way back when, that was to make sure that you were holding the right person or entity accountable. But yeah, that's probably something just globally licensing should probably look at. And of course, they're not part of this conversation, but yeah, I wasn't aware that you couldn't email your stuff in. So yeah, I would share that that's probably a problem.
I was just there this week for renewing our entertainment establishment license to have live music and things like that. Literally, it's paper. I have to complete the entire application with all my business information every year, even if it's just a renewal. And you can mail in a check, or you can pay with card if you walk in, but you still have to have your paper. So I've been asking for a while, is this information not saved? You guys not have any of like our, you don't have our address? Like you have to have we're supposed to have like a map of I'm supposed to draw a map of our tap room. And I'm like, you guys have our plans, you know what we look like, it's every year we have to do that. And
Well,
that's
and
just one.
I think part of that is to make sure that your business hasn't changed, that the ownership hasn't changed. I mean, is your address going to change? Probably not. But a lot of businesses change hands, and I could be the Artichoke and I could be owned by 6 different people in a year. So, that's part of the accountability process. But I certainly agree that I don't know why you couldn't at least PDF it and email it in, or upload it online. And those are software issues that, licensing could certainly look at, I would think.
It just seems, online would be, and then they have to like read my handwriting, which probably isn't great. So I just, online or something. And that's just one of the things where when papers just get lost, like it's just hard to keep track of paperwork, and we want to make sure we're up to date on things, and absolutely things change. I get that, but that's just an example of like one thing I did this week. And there'll be other things like that throughout the year that we have to handle.
So I liken that to creating friction, and we need to stop making friction and get rid of friction. And so something as simple as have anything changed, like we're reversing the way we think about this. You had said, Sharon, that some people make changes. Most people don't make changes throughout the course of a year. So let's go with the majority. We don't make changes. So if anything's changed, then I will fix it at that point, rather than forcing everybody to always have to redo everything, which creates actually in a lot of cases more problems. Because maybe I didn't do something right and all of a sudden it's wrong. And here I've made an issue out of something that didn't ever need to be fixed in the first place. It's just a rethinking of how we do business with the city, because if I certify that nothing's changed, my word is my word, and I could lie on a form just as easy as I can lie on a checkbox. So let's go with the people's, the majority of us don't change. That's my suggestion, not necessarily to you, Sharon, but to Mayor, to push through like a way we, rethink how we do things. It'll streamline it as long as you have the infrastructure to hold that information. Also, if you can see my desk is littered with papers, and about every 6 months I clear it off because I figured if I didn't need it in 6 months, it can go in the shredder. But like, we got to get rid of all this clutter, and almost every single document we create ends up going back into a computer at some point and being stored somewhere, either on your website or on my own internal. I would love to rely on you guys to hold my documents, because you're ultimately the one that needs it. So it would be wonderful, like the state, just to electronically, if we can get there.
And
That's a good
not just
takeaway, though,
businesses.
so we could look into.
It's not just businesses with alcohol that they make them fill out the same application. That's just pretty standard for anybody who has an annual permit. The community event process actually I used to have to require their original signature as well, until we moved that application online about 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago.
I have a random question. I was looking at the 29-page description here, and let me see if I can find it. You should make it legal to have alcohol by consumption at the farmers markets. I think that would be a draw to get more people to go out, especially at the latter part of the market when it tends to be a little bit quiet.
I agree, and I've actually talked to Farm Shop about that, who is the Old Town farmers market. The issue is once you start adding alcohol or live entertainment, you fall away from the farmer's permit, and then you become a community event, which is, again, is a much larger process. I wish there was a way around that. I'm not sure if we could adjust an ordinance for that. I'm sure we could.
It sounds more
People are
like
very worried that there'll be drunken brawls over fresh vegetables, it appears. So
people are going to drink, they're going to drink. Again, let's not have fun on account that somebody might not have fun, That's the backwards thinking.
No, you're right. I mean, we can't make policy based off what's the worst thing that could happen. So that's a good point. But I'm glad we're having this discussion. I think that there's an opportunity at the very least to modernize our process and try to streamline a bit more. I have been informed that the Secretary of State's office will, instead of having you fill out your form, will have an option where you, this is what I've told secondhand, where you just review your information and change what, if anything's changed. So that's a much easier process. In the city, could you just have a checkbox that says this information from in the past is correct, so you don't have to redo it? Could we be digitalize it more? What more can we be doing to be more user friendly? And just like what Andrew's saying, you're exactly correct. I got like tons of binders right now on my table here for a project I'm looking into, and I don't have digital copies of it. And one of my thoughts is I would need to find now the type of scanner that can like self-feed itself and digitize this so I can use it as a PDF to search the document for different things. It's just easier to do this type of stuff on a computer. But again, we've been so paper dominant for a while that everything almost always gets to a computer one way or another. Is there a way that we could just start there instead of Stacy having to fill out the form, wet signature, everything, spend it 4 hours, out of her day planning to come to City Hall and go through stuff? Is there a way to streamline that process? So I think that's something we should be thinking about moving forward, and we'll work with Isaac offline to figure out what the main issues are that we should be attacking first that would have the most impact.
This is just random. Again, I'm picking apart the 29-page document I've never had to go through. And from what I read here, the farmers markets should all immediately switch to a cultural market so they can do a lot more things, because it's all encompassing and maybe easier to do alcohol, perhaps, because if it gets away from the farmers market. But it specifically states foods as approved by the City of Wichita Environmental Services Division. I don't even find that on your website. I find the Department of Environmental Health when I Google those words directly. And it's talking about air quality, but the city doesn't regulate food.
Not anymore. Thank you for
That is long been gone since 2018, maybe, or 17.
even longer, I think.
Well, so back in I know specifically they switched their roles back when I started my business in 2013, but it was more or less official after that with the state. The city and the county combined when I was opening. I found that out because I had to deal with both licensing groups because they merged during the time from when I did my pre-licensing and my planning. But yeah, so that's something I don't even know. That might deter people in the cultural world to do anything because there's no information on it. Like, what food am I not allowed to sell? Maybe that's not an issue. So, sorry, I just
No worries.
on
As far as the cultural market goes, I've been here for 9 years. We've done one.
So what's going on up at when we do stuff at Nomar? That to me is a cultural market. That's literally a cultural market center.
That was the only place that's ever done it, and they haven't done any of the large markets since pre-COVID, I believe.
Interesting. Okay, y'all. Like I said, we got to get off a little earlier than normal, if that's okay. I think we got some stuff to take back to staff and chat with, but I got to go get ready for our memorial service for our police department. So is there any further discussion at this moment? And if not, we will continue working on this and give you guys an update. And Isaac will, let me talk with comps about maybe ways we can get this information out, but also I'd love for you to brainstorm a little bit about what is the stuff that people seem to be struggling with the most as far as navigating our system, so we can figure out, I guess, ways to navigate that easier.
Okay. Nope, I can certainly do that.
All right, everybody. Is there anything else for the good of the group? Are we okay to adjourn? With that, I'll make a motion to adjourn. All in favor, please give me a thumbs up. All right, that is a majority. Therefore, we are adjourned. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.